this.
Yeah.
And it is your business model. As he says, you can't make money off misinformation and disinformation.
안녕하세요. 오랜만입니다. 오늘은 9월 29일 수요일이죠. 백신 2차 접종을 하고 나서 내일이면 2주예요. 내일. 오늘은 아직 2주가 안 됐지만 그래도 오늘은 좀 가슴 답답함이나 이런 것도 많이 줄어든 것 같아서 운동을 해볼까 합니다. 근데 확실히 화이자인데 2차를 맞았는데 1차 때보다 엄청 아픕니다. 훨씬 더 아파요. 저는 첫날 밤에 오한까지 왔고요. 둘째 날에도 근육통이 온몸에 와서 운동을 안 했는데 타이레놀을 2알 정도를 먹었어요. 그래서 뭐 그 3일차 이후부터는 많이 괜찮았고 피로감이나 그런 건 조금씩 있었는데 지금 많이 좋아진 것 같아서 팔굽혀펴기 정도 간단한 운동을 해볼까 합니다. 오랜만에 운동을 해요. 아주 러닝은 뛰고 싶은데 오늘 비도 오고 해서 제가 금요일날 쉬는데 금요일날 한번 러닝을 뛰는 걸로 해보겠습니다. 오랜만에. 요즘에 날씨가 너무 좋죠. 오늘은 비록 비가 오긴 하지만 요즘에 미세먼지가 하나도 없고 가을, 완연한 가을 날씨입니다. 역시 오늘도 운동할 땐 역시 CNN이죠.
And the time has come, and it's got to be pushed.
I agree. Yellow journalism. For the ones who claim to be journalists, the others just innuendo. It's like going out. Social media is like just going out in the middle of the street and screaming opinions. Is basically what it is. So, you know.
It is, except it gets, instead of just in the middle of the street, it gets delivered to everybody
Around the world.
in their mailbox.
Yeah.
And you can see it, and you see it without any context.
Yeah.
I love you, D. Lemon.
Love you more. I got a lot to talk about because we are running out of time in many, many ways, Chris.
Make your witness.
All right, sir. I'll see you soon. This is Don Lemon tonight. Is it still Infrastructure Week? Is it still Infrastructure Week? I thought that was over with the last administration, where every week, well, every day was Infrastructure Week, right? So Joe Biden is running out of time with everything on the line. We are running out of time, and I'm going to explain that by the end of this take that I'm doing right now. By the way, it's Mark Don's take, right? I'm being transparent here. When I give you this at the top of the show, I tell you it's my take, right? It's not just, like some channels, opinion or propaganda. Democrats are running out of patience with the holdouts in their own party. Joe Manchin getting FaceTime with the president today for more than an hour. Kyrsten Sinema having not one, but three White House meetings today. Yet sources tell CNN that there are still plenty of areas of disagreement, and it's not at all that clear how quickly a deal could be reached. That as the House Speaker Nancy Pelosi does a 180, now saying that she's going to hold that vote on Thursday on the president's bipartisan infrastructure bill without a deal on the massive spending bill that could reshape the lives of millions of Americans. And progressives are digging in their heels.
Our caucus is strongest when it's unified, and decoupling these bills, it starts to pit priorities against one another, and that's why I disagree with separating them.
It goes on and on and on. We're talking, and nothing is happening. And I think that's why it's important that we defeat the infrastructure bill in the House, and that if these guys want to see the infrastructure bill passed, they're going to have to deal with us in reconciliation.
He's right about that one thing. Talk, and nothing happens. American people need their elected officials to work for them, and not for their parties, and not for each other, or themselves, I should say. That is happening as the clock is ticking to midnight Thursday with a possible government shutdown looming. Military personnel wouldn't get paid, care about the military, but you know, they're not going to get paid because you can't reach a deal. You don't want to raise the debt ceiling. We've done it before. So military personnel wouldn't get paid, neither would hundreds of TSA employees. Cuts to the CDC, though apparently not to those working on the COVID response. And if the United States defaults in a matter of weeks, nearly 6 million jobs could be lost. Did you hear that? Nearly 6 million jobs could be lost. And maybe that is the point for some. to sabotage it because they're not in power. Okay. Minority rule is happening right now. But anyways, I digress. So 6 million jobs could be lost. Unemployment could soar. Stock prices would plummet, potentially hammering your 401ks. That's what's at stake if Congress can't get it together in time. And then there were the fireworks on Capitol Hill today as the nation's top generals contradicted the president on whether they wanted to keep 2,500 American troops in Afghanistan.
I won't share my personal recommendation to the president, but I will give you my honest opinion, and my honest opinion and view shaped my recommendation. I recommended that we maintain 2,500 troops in Afghanistan.
General Milley, I assume you agree with that in terms of the recommendation of 2,500?
I do agree with that.
Okay, so remember, the president told ABC's George Stephanopoulos this, and it was just last month when he did it. Here it is.
Your military advisors did not tell you, no, we should just keep 2,500 troops. It's been a stable situation for the last several years. We can do that. We can continue to do that.
No, no one said that to me that I can recall.
Okay, that I can recall. All right. The fact is, Joe Biden is a commander-in-chief. He ran on getting out of Afghanistan, and he did just that. Now, the White House pushing back on the critics, pointing out nobody thought keeping 2,500 troops on the ground in Afghanistan was sustainable.
Recommendations made by a range of his advisors, something he welcomed, something he asked them to come to him clear-eyed about, to give him candid advice. There was no one who said 5 years from now we could have 2,500 troops and that would be sustainable. And I think that's important for people to know and to understand.
He can't recall, but the two gentlemen saying they told him. And then there is General Mark Milley's response to reporting in Bob Woodward and Robert Costa's book, it's called Peril, that he agreed with Nancy Pelosi that the then president was crazy during a call 2 days after the insurrection at the Capitol.
I sought to assure her that nuclear launch is governed by a very specific and deliberate process. She was concerned and made various personal references characterizing the president. I explained to her that the president is the sole nuclear launch authority and he doesn't launch them alone, and that I am not qualified to determine the mental health of the President of the United States.
He was emphatic. And chose his words carefully. That is a pretty extraordinary statement. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs saying that he's not qualified to determine the mental health of a president. And how about the exchange with Republican Senator Marsha Blackburn, who asked General Milley if he was accurately quoted in any of the books about the Trump administration?
General Milley, yes or no to this? Did you talk to Bob Woodward or Robert Costa for their book, Peril?
Woodward, yes. Costa, no.
Did you talk to Carol Leonic and Philip Parker for their book, Alone Can I Fix It?
Yes.
Did you talk to Michael Bender for his book is Frankly, We Did Win This Election, the Inside Story of How Trump Lost? Yes.
Yes.
And were you accurately represented in these books?
I haven't read any of the books, so I don't know. I've seen press reporting of it. I haven't read the book.
Let's have you read the books and then let us know if you are accurately presenting
Absolutely.
them.
He saw the press reporting, so then he knows the context. You will notice that he didn't say he was misquoted in the Revelations in any of those books. There is another book in the news as well from former Trump White House press secretary Stephanie Grisham. I'm not going to call her press secretary because you know she's the one who never held a press briefing, which was her job. Right? That was her job. So she's got a new book out. Hugely ironic title. It's called I'll Take Your Questions Now. The New York Times reports that Grisham writes that the then president, inspired by North Korea's brutal dictatorship, asked her to research ways the press could be barred from the briefing room, which seems like a waste of time since she wasn't briefing anyone. She also strongly implies that the former president's secret visit to Walter Reed in 2019, remember, appeared to be for a routine colonoscopy. But she claims that he didn't want his own vice president to be in power while he was sedated, so he kept the whole thing quiet. Okay. And then there's what she calls Trump's son-in-law and senior advisor, Jared Kushner. Rasputin, is that Rasputin or Rasputin? In a slim-fitting suit, the Slim Reaper. Okay, sure, she won't answer the questions now, but she never spoke up about any of this at the time when it might have done the country some good. And speaking of doing some good, there's a huge announcement today from LeBron James. Okay, this is good news. The Lakers superstar says that he was skeptical about the vaccine at first, but he did his research and decided to get vaccinated.
I know that I was very skeptical about it all, but after doing my research and things of that nature, I felt like it was best suited for not only me, but for my family and for my friends. And, and that's why I decided to do it. We're talking about individuals' bodies. We're not talking about something that's, political or racism or police brutality and things of that nature. We're talking about like people's bodies and well-being, so I don't feel like for me personally, I should get involved in what other people should do for their bodies and their livelihoods.
A whole lot of people look up to LeBron James and value his opinion, so it matters that he speaks out publicly about getting vaccinated, even though he had doubts, or even though he doesn't want to speak for what anybody else should do. So if you believe in the science, if you do your research and follow the facts, don't you have a responsibility to use your platform to tell people the truth? I talked about that with Hall of Famer Kareem Abdul-Jabbar just last night.
We have to educate ourselves so that we understand what is being offered. These vaccines are safe and they are effective, and we have to fight this virus as a group.
He's going to be here again tonight to talk about what LeBron did today. And we've talked about our toxic politics and the literal toxicity of anti-vax rhetoric. And there are still people out there spreading the big lie. People like, you've got to pay attention to this, because we tell you, about the former president and the big lie. But you know who is actually spreading the big lie and implementing policies that are dangerous because of the big lie? It's more important that we talk about the people who are in power, who are helping to spread this BS and to keep it going. People like Congressman Paul Gosar still lying about non-existent election fraud in Arizona and beyond.
We can do that and follow through on this audit. Folks, if it's what I've been told, and I had people come to me early hours of the day after, from the Security Exchange Fraud Department to the CIA Fraud Department, that between 450 and 700,000 ballots were altered in the state of Arizona.
Not one word of that is true. If those departments even exist. And he's telling, this is an elected official spreading that. Trump is not an elected official anymore. Paul Gosar is, and the likes of him. Therein lies the problem. All of that is a lie, what he said. Just the kind of toxic lie that is still spreading all across this country. And speaking of a former president, the former President Barack Obama had something to say today about all of this toxicity.
What we've seen is that in the breach, a culture of cynicism and mistrust can grow. You start seeing more division and increasingly bitter conflict. A politics that feeds anger and resentment towards those who aren't like us, and starts turning away from democratic principles in favor of tribalism and might makes right. This is true in Europe and in Asia. It's true in Latin America and in Africa. And it happens to be true here at home. But the good news is we can reverse these trends. I don't believe it's inevitable that we succumb to paralysis or mutual hatred or abandon democracy in favor of systems that reserve power and privilege for the few.
Look, he is an optimistic man. He's more optimistic than I am. This whole idea about the time that I mentioned in the beginning, the whole theme of this is that we're running out of time. That is a warning from the former president. The toxicity, however, is real and it is dangerous. Time's not running out because the time is here. The lies are all around us, and if we can't get a grip as a country, it just might be too late.
폼룰러 마지막으로 한 번만 더 하고
The
끝내도록
Taliban is
하겠습니다.
apparently contradicting their commander in chief today in the White House.
오랜만에 땀이 엄청.
Is it a problem for the president?
He asked for candor, he asked for directness, and in any scenario, he's not looking for a bunch of yes men and women. And what that means is that ultimately, he's going to have to make the decision about what's in the best interest of the United States.
Oman set its sights on 2040 by air, by land, and by sea. This Middle Eastern country is reinventing itself for the future, prioritizing infrastructure, putting natural resources to work.
This type of fishing makes sure that our fishing stock is more sustainable for the future.
And leaning on manufacturing to boost the economy.
Our role is not just to run a business, but also